tonight we are going to do a skill share. We've done one of these before a couple months ago on photographing your work. Tonight we're going to do websites, and Andrea has offered to share her knowledge. I'm going to share a little bit of mine, but these are also meant for just discussion too. So, you know, you're welcome to pipe in about your experiences, either building a website or selling online, all that kind of stuff, as we just kind of move through the discussion tonight. But we thought we would start by going around and asking everybody to see who has a website, and then also, are you doing it yourself, and if so, through what platform, or is somebody else creating and updating it for you? So, again, my name's Sarah. I do have a website. I've had one for probably 15 years, and it's gone through various stages. I just switched over to using free Google sites and Square Online for selling. So, but I've used Wix and Square Online as a paid option. And then a long time ago, I used Yahoo Site Builder.
The chair you're on.
Hey everybody, I'm Andrea. How about maybe we could all raise our hands. If you have a personal website, raise your hand. Okay, awesome. If you do not have a personal website, raise your hand. Okay, perfect. Perfect, so everybody is kind of here either to learn skills or maybe work on your current website that you have, that kind of thing, right? So I'm sure we have a lot of knowledge between all of us with all the different platforms we've all used, that kind of thing. But I'm here really to talk about the foundations of building your website, not just like the technical coding part of things, but really how do you start with an idea? How do you blow that idea out? How do you determine what goals you have for your website, that kind of thing. So what's my authority on this? I'm a former programmer. I did web development for about 8 years, and now I still work in the digital space in the advertising industry. I'm more on the product side of things and project management right now, but I still help people build websites all the time, and I do some freelance work as well. So I was a back-end developer, that kind of thing, not a lot of front-end development, but I get my creative on when it comes to doing pottery, and I'm based out of Fireseed Clay Art Studio over at Thornton Road. So some of the websites I've worked on professionally, just to share my creds with you. So this is a site that I helped build just a couple of weeks ago. This is a healthcare website. They help IT professionals, connecting them with healthcare companies. Oops. Yep. My computer's extremely old. And then this is a cabinetry company that I built a website for. I built a couple of websites for this cabinetry company. This is a DoD website that I helped build for anyone who's interested in being a cyber warrior for the military. I did work for the DoD for quite a while. This is a data aggregating website where we put career, college, and military options kind of on the same level for people who are interested. And then if any of you participated in Art 04, I built the website for Art 04 as well. Okay, so this is not only a technical process. If anybody who hasn't built a website is feeling a little daunted, or maybe you have to update your website, it's not only coding. In fact, you probably won't even need to do a ton of coding nowadays. There are a lot of creative tasks involved in this. We all know, like we were here for the photography session and learning how to do that in our last skill share. You're going to be putting together color palettes, choosing fonts, writing about your products, sketching layouts for your pages. And then on a technical side, it's pretty minimal. You may need to buy a domain, you may need to set up hosting, and that can usually be done through the platform that you're building your site on. And if you do need something very specific that's very complex, some sort of functionality that really doesn't come out of the box, maybe you'll need to find a developer to help you. And then e-commerce is a whole nother thing, and I'm going to let Sarah talk about that. And also, if you are taking notes, this is definitely, we can share this around with the group, right? Okay, so where do I start?
Oh, you also begin. There it goes. Go for it.
Yeah, right? Where do you start? What are the main goals of your website, right? This is really what you need to start thinking about when you're at the beginning of this process, or if you were reimagining your site, if you're doing a rebuild, a reskin, anything. Ask yourself these kinds of questions. Who is coming to my website? What are the main purposes of the website? Do users need to contact you at all? Do you want to share your artistic process with your users? Do you want visitors to know about you personally? I've actually spoken with artists who don't really want that personal side of their lives shared on the website, or their professional lives. Do you want users to be able to interact with you? Maybe it's not through a contact form or something like that. Do you want to send them to sign up for your newsletter? And how do you measure success? What does success mean to you? These are all some really good thought starter questions when you're working on building your website out. So the other thing you need to do is get inspiration. So really, if you're feeling daunted by this whole process, go find some other websites that you like. What do you like about them specifically? Do you like the colors? Do you like the fonts? Do you like the messaging that they have? Do you like any of the specific features that they have? How are you engaging with the information that they're sharing on their website? That kind of thing. And also, what's important is to think about what you don't like as well. What doesn't work for you? What just kind of feels weird in your gut and you're like, oh, I don't really like that. Because you don't have to build a standard website that everybody else is doing, right? You as a creator, as an artist, this is where you can be really unique. So those are some certain questions to ask yourself as you're starting the beginning of this process. Okay, so now we're going to talk about tangible steps to get you to your final website product. You need to think about what pages you want to have on the site. How can you support your goals and segment them, categorize them, so that you can think of the pages that you need to build? That's a good place to start. So you need to figure out the content strategy for each page. So how are you going to tell your story, and how are each of the pages going to support you through telling that story? Primarily, what you really need to hone in on is who are the visitors and what's the purpose of the page. Everything else that's listed here, these are very flexible. So let's say, for example, I have a gallery page that I'm working on my website. I know I need a gallery because what I want to be able to do is, when I apply to shows, allow the judges to come to my gallery page so they can see everything that I've been working on lately. So something that I may need to do is educate people when they go to that page. How did I make that piece? What's the story behind that piece? What's interesting about that piece? Why is that piece even on the page? You may also want to share other information. Maybe you have some sort of wayfinding on that page. So what wayfinding is when you have links on one page that take you to another page on the website. That's just kind of a fancy name for it, but it really describes how people can navigate through the website. So if I have my gallery page, maybe when you open up a single page for a specific item, maybe you want something that says, go to the next item in my portfolio, that kind of thing. How do the pages link together? Because you don't want to immediately send people off of your website, right? You want to keep them in there and get them excited about your work. Any questions about these?
What is branding?
Branding is if you have a personal brand, right? So like Sarah has a brand where she does, what do you even call the basket weaving, right?
Yeah.
So that's branded on her site through her logo. She talks about her process. You can see her videos on social media that kind of reinforce that that's Sarah's, one of the keys to her creative work right there.
It could also, well, it could somewhat be, at least in my opinion, that like what Andrew was talking about, like the fonts, the colors, like that you are picking can kind of be your brand as well and tie into maybe you use certain colors in your work and then you repeat those colors in the colors of the website.
Yep. Yeah, that's another way of really pushing that branding. Sometimes you want to teach people about your process, right? That's something that we could all do as artists. How do we make our pieces? Why are our pieces so expensive? They're not. That kind of thing. Do we want to have users talk to us through the website? Do we want them to be able to contact us? That kind of thing. So let's go through an example. So one thing that may be important to you is if you have markets that you're going to on a regular basis, you may want to have an upcoming events page. I think that's kind of reasonable for people, right? So let's go through this kind of, I've set up this framework where we can talk through what the strategy is going to be for that individual page. So who's going to be coming to this page? New patrons, maybe returning patrons, that kind of thing. So it needs to speak to to those two audiences, right? What are some other audiences that you may have coming just to any page on your website?
Relatives.
Okay, there we go, mom and dad. Judges at shows, do they come to those? Or maybe if you want to have your work at a store, maybe they'll be looking at your website, that kind of thing. So think about the audience that you're speaking to. What's the purpose? So for an upcoming events page, I want to get as many people who are patrons to come to my events, right? I want them to come to me. So part of that is I want to show them my work. I want to get them interested in my work, right? So one thing I can do is show them my work. So one thing I could put on the site, on that specific page, is a product gallery. You know how you see little carousels at the bottom of certain pages that you can click through and move through? I can show you an example of that on one of the sites. Let me see. Well, so it's not a gallery, but this is wayfinding right here, right? So these two links, find your door style and view all, that is encouraging you to stay on the site but still explore more. Okay, so then what might I want? So one of those categories that I listed above was conversion. What kind of actions do I want people to complete on my site? I would love to have people sign up for my newsletter. They're already interested in me. They're thinking about coming to my new shows. What's the best way to get them continually involved? Sign up for my newsletter, right? You can see those upcoming shows in that newsletter. And I also want to educate people. So the who, where, when, why, how, right? Give them all that information about the show specifically. You can talk about how often you show your work, what types of events you'll have. And I think personally, so like I have a cactus sale coming up at the end of September. I'm going to be selling all of my planters at that show, right? I'm not going to be doing my citrus juicers or anything like that. So that might be something else that you can convey to people on the upcoming events page. And then engagement. So how do we get them to say, yes, I want to go to this event. I want to see you. You can have them add the event to their calendar. You can have links to the social media for that show or for, whatever market you're going to be at. Any questions about this example?
How do you add events to your calendar?
So those are certain links that you can get. So let's see. So do GACA Skillshare, let's see. I think something that you may need to do is if you create an event through Google or something like that, you can share that specifically through the Google platform, I believe, but this is my calendar. If you have, I can get back to you later on if you do want the specifics, like the specific steps.
I think with Google Calendar, you can go in and create a specific calendar and then have it share. I could share it with you, or you could share it with public. Share it with public probably would create a link that you could then end up posting on your site.
Yeah, it creates a code snippet that you're gonna put onto your website.
And then that whole thing where it pops up in your own calendar, I don't know how to do that.
We can look at mine when we get to my website, because I've
I know a
got,
little bit, not very much.
not necessarily that, I've got like a firing calendar that people can like add to theirs.
Yes,
So,
exactly, yep.
Don't you have to code it differently for like a Google Calendar versus a iCloud calendar versus an Outlook calendar?
Yeah, yeah, I think usually if you hit like an export or something like that, it'll give you lots of different options for that, but yes. So think about the platform where they house their calendar items. That's a whole thing.
There's 2 days.
Okay, so once you've kind of answered those questions, gone through the framework, thinking about your goals and how you can do it, you want to think of the hierarchy on the page. So it's literally just when people start at the top of the page through what they go down to the bottom of the page to see. So think about what's the most important thing for you to have your visitors do or see or understand. Put that right at the top of the page, no need to hide that. Do you want your visitors to stay on the page for more time or less time? So we talked about having links on your site that can lead to other pages. Do you want people to think about those sooner when they get on the site or on that specific page, or do you want to have them wait until they get to the bottom of the page, they're more interested? You can go that way or you can go that way on my website. So thinking about how these pages are going to interact with one another. What happens when someone gets to the bottom of the page? Is there a dead end there? Do they read your bio and then all of a sudden they got to scroll back to the top? Or do you want to show them your new work or something like that? That kind of thing. And is your page too long or too short? This is very subjective. Okay.
Your phone or your desktop?
Well, we're gonna get into that, trust me. But think about what's a reasonable amount for someone to read, maybe in like 20, 30 seconds, that kind of thing. You don't want just 2 sentences on a page, but you don't want, a Charles Dickens novel there, okay? So let's think about the strategy. So we talked about all of those priority items that I have, all of those goals that I want to achieve on the page and how I can do it. So if I were thinking about the hierarchy on this page, first thing I would do is I would have a header and it would say something very clear that's like, visit me at a market. They know exactly what the page is about. I would have a call to action, that's what CTA means. It's essentially a button, a link, something that you're asking somebody to do something for you on that page. So I would love for people to sign up for my newsletter. There's a button there, they can sign up that way. I would have body copy that would convey information to them about where my markets are, when my markets are, and what I sell. And then we would think about each event. So each event is probably going to be the same, right? You're going to have a title of an event, you're going to have the date, you're going to have the time, and maybe you'll give some links. So these wonderful add to your calendar links that you can do. The types of products you're going to have at that specific event, anything like that. And then wayfinding, like I mentioned before. I don't want people just to think about my events. I want them to see the products that they can buy at those events. So why wouldn't I put a carousel at the bottom of the page and show them what they can see? Like, I'm gonna toot my own horn, go look at my other stuff, what you can buy from me. And at this point, you can either write the copy for it or you can hold off. So this is just strategy here. This is not the specific copy, the words that you're gonna put on the page necessarily, but I do wanna make a note that when it comes to the designs and the copy, they do need to work together with one another. So let's say, for example, I write a header that's like, visit me at all of these markets this year for the rest of, the hellish summer that we're having, whatever, right? That amount of copy is not going to fit into a small header. So I need to make sure that the copy can work with the designs and vice versa. So keep those kinds of things in mind. Are there any questions about this? Okay, so the sitemap. So you've already thought about the pages that you want to have, and you've written the content strategy for each of these pages. So again, how are these pages going to interact? What is your sitemap going to look like? Has anybody seen one of these before? Okay, so we're relatively familiar with it, but this really is showing a list of pages and how you can navigate through the website to get to those pages. So in order to get to the saved addresses right here, I can start on the home page. I have to go through the account landing page, and then I have to go to saved addresses, right? You don't necessarily have to do this, but if you're working with a website that has a lot of pages on it, this might be helpful. It may be kind of irrelevant if you have 4, 5 pages on your website, that kind of thing. But if you do have lots of pages, think about organizing it this way. Okay, wireframes. So, does anybody know what a wireframe is? Okay. They're basic sketches of the functionality that you want to have on your web page. They're really just place markers that say, okay, I want a header right here, and it's going to have my emoji here, and it's going to have a sharing button, right? That sharing button is some functionality. We've got a single card with an image right here. We've got some navigation down at the bottom. It's really kind of a high-level layout of the page. It's really great to do wireframes just with like a pencil and paper. It's a really quick and dirty way of visualizing what you're working on, and it allows for a lot of flexibility. You don't have to, start building and then all of a sudden, oh my God, I did this wrong, I have to redo everything.
Excuse me, each of the box, is it a page?
Those?
No, on top, the big box with the cross in there. Yeah.
Oh, those, that's just an indicator of an image.
Oh,
right
that's an
there.
image.
Yeah, the
Okay.
box with the cross is an image.
But
Yep.
it's per page, this, or?
This is one single page.
This is per page, so you need to do as many as you plan to have pages. So for each page, you need to make a wireframe.
So I would say
It's
Why-
a tool.
it's a
I mean,
tool.
I understand, but I mean, if you want to have your life easier after.
So not necessarily. It can be easy,
Make it
but let's
easier.
say, for example, you're coming up with a gallery page, right?
Mhm.
So you don't need a wireframe for every single product you have. You can use it as a template,
Mhm.
right? So think about ways that you can use templating on your site. But did that answer your question?
Sort of.
Tell me more.
Okay, sort of. So this is for one page,
Yes.
and yeah. Well, I guess I don't know. Yeah, I think I'll understand a little bit.
Let's talk
later.
after this.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Any other questions about wireframes? Okay, design patterns, right? So These are reusable features, modules, layouts, components on your website. This makes building a website very easy. So what I want to do is talk through an example of a module with me. So I got this off of the Washington Post. This was the least stressful piece of news that I could find to put up here. So what we've got, you've all seen these, right? These are the live news updates. So at its most basic, this is a container. We have the copy on the left side, and on the right side we have an image, right? Those are kind of some of the basic building blocks of websites. If you notice, you'll see patterns throughout websites, right? So maybe the imagery is on the left, maybe it's not on the right. Maybe you don't have any copy, you just have 3 images, right? Or maybe whenever you have a hover state, whenever you mouse over a button on a website, it changes a specific color so that you know, that's a pattern that you know when you put your mouse over any button on the website, you'll know that you can click on it because the color changes, right? Any questions about design patterns? Okay. So these are going to be really critical, especially when you have pages where you're reusing elements. So like a gallery, again, to go back to the gallery, or to go back to our upcoming events page that we talked about, right? I wrote out essentially all of the data that we need for a template for a single event. We need the title, the day, the time, social media, that kind of thing. So as you're wireframing, think about these design patterns, because you're going to save yourself some time instead of trying to reinvent the wheel with every single section of your website, every section of your page. Okay? All right, and we kind of, these are some other design elements that you can think of. What fonts are you going to use? What color palette are you going to use? What do the buttons look like? How's your navigation going to look? How's it going to function? Do you have search on your site? These are all of the beautiful states of buttons that you will probably not need to code yourself. If you use a platform, they will do all of this for you with their templates. But just thinking about, you can get really nitty-gritty with these design elements.
There goes 2 more days. I said, there goes 2 more days.
Yeah. Maybe longer. Okay, imagery, right? Such a cute kid that I can't really see her. Oh my God. What you need to think about is how your images are going to look on desktop, on mobile, maybe if you're supporting tablets as well. So you don't want to build a website where there's this like great picture of you on your bio page, and in desktop you can see you're like, oh, hey. And then when it comes to mobile, it's just like the corner of your face, right? So you need to think about that. Do you need to have another cut for your images, not just something that's going to go on desktop?
Does that mean that you need another picture, or it's another format?
It can.
What is it?
It can. You may need a different picture size. With certain platforms, what you can do is you can focus in on the picture so that you can tell the platform, okay, I want this to be the center of the picture.
Okay.
So they'll automatically do it for you when it converts really like the desktop image to mobile. Okay, now you can write your copy, right? We're here, all of you writers out there. So like I brought up before, think about, does your design need to be modified for the copy or vice versa? Okay? Think about that. Think about what looks good visually. You may have written the best prose ever, but if it's a solid paragraph that's 20 lines long, are people really going to read it? Maybe not.
Your mom will.
So, I'm not a writer. I am definitely not a writer. And as I'm building my website, I'm going to use AI to write things for me. So think about those things. How can you make your life faster? easier. A little more scary. And then the big question, what technology am I going to use? Okay, there are a lot of products out there that are very similar. A lot of these out-of-the-box website builders for you. So you got Wix, you have Squarespace, you have WordPress, you have French Press, like all of these things. That's not, don't put that last one down. But what do you get out of the box? What are your needs for the website? Do you need e-commerce on your website? That's a big question that's going to determine a lot. That's a big determining factor if you're building a website from scratch. So you look at reviews, you ask other people, was it tough to build e-commerce on this? Was it easy to build e-commerce on this? That kind of thing, right? If you need to purchase a domain and set up hosting, then typically that's going to be done through whatever platform you use. I would suggest keeping the domain purchase, which is the actual name of your website that appears in the search bar. So like www.google.com, that's a domain. I would recommend purchasing a domain with the hosting provider. So hosting means they're going to stage your website up for you. That's the only way it's getting onto the internet. So you can use something like GoDaddy, something like that. GoDaddy's super expensive. If you have to manage those kinds of assets in multiple platforms, that might be an extra challenge for you. So I know from personal experience with Squarespace, I have the domain and hosting included in my package for that.
You didn't mention Shopify.
Shopify, that's another one. Yeah, Shopify is great if you want to do e-commerce on your site. Okay, do you need to code? That's another question. You probably don't, unless you have something crazy where like something needs to come out of the computer and hit someone in the face. Like you won't need to code at all. Can you get somebody else to do it for you? Yeah, sure, find a freelancer. When you find a freelancer, ask yourselves the question, will maintenance need to be done on the website and who's gonna do it? So if you are going to new shows all the time, if you're constantly adding new products, it would be better, in my opinion, to empower yourself to make those updates. You'll save money, you'll learn more, you'll have more control over your website, even if somebody else built it for you. So, what platforms are we using out there?
I use WordPress.
WordPress?
That's
That's heavy hitting.
Yeah, because both myself and my wife were software engineers, so we could do it, but it's non-trivial.
Yes, WordPress is very complex. I do not recommend it if you want something up very quickly.
Yeah.
I use GoDaddy.
GoDaddy, okay.
It would work pretty good. It's
Perfect.
easy. You don't need to do anything but stick your pictures in and change colors and you're good to go.
Easy
I don't have
peasy.
e-commerce on the site I'm running right now though, so it's just a hi, how you doing,
Mm-hmm.
which is easy. 3-4 pages.
Easy peasy. What else are we using?
Squarespace.
Squarespace. You can set up a website in less than 5 minutes. I'm not kidding.
And then change the format.
Yeah. Yeah, you can have global changes to your website happen very quickly. You can change a theme and then all of a sudden everything looks perfect once you've changed it.
And what about Google?
So Google is a search engine provider as well as they offer other services. I have not.
I use Google Sites, so there is
Google
actually
Sites,
a
okay. I have not used
provider.
Google Sites before.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll talk about it a little bit more when
It looks
we
like
switch over.
Squarespace, no?
It's not an e-commerce platform,
No.
but I have incorporated it.
So there's a use case, right? So we know that if you're going to build your website using Google, then you're not going to be able to have e-commerce directly through that site,
Mhm.
right? So there we go.
And the things that when you're choosing as well, What about the things you want to have in it, like galleries and mailing lists? Because like in WordPress, it doesn't really have anything native. You have to find plugins to do a gallery. So then you have to find which gallery do I want to use.
Yeah.
And if I want to have a mailing list, then you think, oh, who's going to manage the mailing list? Because that's something that's going to be in the website itself, or would you have to go up to MailChimp? Now another service. So
Yep.
that's kind of the extra plugins you need as well.
Yeah, so that's a really good point. Think about a mailing list. If you do have a newsletter or something like that, that's another technological concern you need to think about. So I know with Squarespace that you can pay more money and they can, you can have control over an email list or something like that, right? But so there are the fiscal concerns and then the technological concerns and smashing those all together. Any questions about this?
If you do hire somebody to do it for you, what's the ballpark even?
It depends on what you want. So typically you'll find a developer for between 65 and 85 an hour. So the way that it can work is that it can be on a project basis or it can be an hourly basis. So what you'll need to look for though in someone is not just development skills, right? Unless you want to go through that process we talked about before, you'll also need someone who can do design work and content strategy, possibly writing, photography, a whole suite of skills. Does that?
Well, and so ballpark project. If you did it on a project, I don't know how many hours it takes. So,
Yeah. It depends on the level of complexity that you have. If it's, it's kind of like a more basic site, right? You have a home page, about me, contact me, and a gallery page, right? That sounds kind of reasonable, I think. It could take 40 hours.
40 hours.
Well, you're maybe
Depends
not that
on how
high.
much
This
you
is
provide to them on a golden platter going here. If we just
Exactly.
look it into a website, you
Right.
have all your text written, all your images ready. You just go here, kind of like your tax person.
Yeah, so it would be a lot less if that's an hourly basis, that kind of thing, right? So, but I think I'm not really hit on what freelancers are charging on those websites. So these are places that you can look for people to help out. So I think, if you get someone who works, who lives and works in a non-English speaking country, that can be a challenge, but it can be a lot less expensive, that kind of thing.
I was gonna say, it also depends whether they're gonna be doing it from scratch and supporting the website themselves, or whether they're gonna be using something like Squarespace to design and build your website.
Right, so maybe even you already have a website, but you want to rebuild it, it's made in like GeoCities or something like that. So you need to have them migrate everything to a whole new platform, So that's kind of like starting from scratch as well.
I just write my stuff in HTML.
There you go, or you could do that. But on Squarespace, you have to pay more money to be able to code in it. Hate that.
How much is Squarespace?
Should I skip this?
Are
we gonna talk about? I don't know.
I have never done Squarespace.
Okay.
So if you want to talk about it.
Super easy. Very easy. The minimum package is about maybe $280 for a year, which I think is very reasonable for hosting and purchasing a domain. A domain may be like $20 or something like that, but once you've made one purchase, you can set up as many websites as you want on Squarespace. I find it to be very flexible. If you're not a technologically oriented person, this is a great place to get started. Literally, they say, what's the name of your website? What colors do you like? What fonts do you like? What templates do you like? And it's done for you, right? You still need to set up the pages, but they have some very robust and elegant templates that you can use. They have templates available for different use cases. So they'll have a template for I don't know, what's a type of website you could build? Okay, I'm
Ordering cookies, I don't know.
Yeah, something like that, right? Like they have very specific templates that you can leverage. So,
I was gonna say, one of the hardest parts for Squarespace with me was deciding which template to use.
exactly, right?
A lot of them are very similar and some of them aren't.
Yep.
So you like it, you had a good experience.
Yes.
The thing is, because you can try them out there, can't you? You
Yeah.
basically say, oh, I'll try this one that changes the whole website.
Oh.
And you can look around and then you say, oh, I don't like that bit. And then you go, oh, I'll try this template instead. You go, oh, that looks better. So it makes it quite easy, I think, to flip over and try each different one.
And how different is it from Shopify? I'm sorry to come back to Shopify.
So Shopify has e-commerce already built in it. Really, Shopify is solely, Shopify has e-commerce at the core of its product. Not necessarily with Squarespace. I haven't set up e-commerce on Squarespace, but I have an inkling it's a little bit more complex. I have worked with Shopify before with the intent of customizing it, and it's very challenging, but you would need to
Shopify?
code and do everything with that for Shopify.
And there is an alternate, I'll talk about it, but there's a difference between Squarespace and Square Online. And I've used Square Online, and that is a free, it's like Square.
Payment
the
platform.
Card reader. And you can open a free store. It will let you add other pages to make the things we've been talking about. And then it only starts to charge you when you want your own domain and some of their extended features. So I can show that too.
But it's different from Squarespace.
It
It's
is.
a different
It's
company.
the same parent company.
Ah, it's the
but-
same parent company.
But it's a different product, yeah.
Yep. And then I think with all of the e-commerce stuff, you need to do taxes things and zones and shipping and
There it is, yeah.
yeah.
Because I say you can,
That's your favorite part, isn't it?
The Square is not very friendly with that one, I will say that. But
Okay.
Which
here we
one?
go.
The Square Online?
Square Online is a little clunky, but
yeah, because the other thing is I use Etsy for my sales, but you can use Etsy as a storefront
Yes.
as well.
Mhm.
So you can kind of embed Etsy inside your own website.
Yep.
So you don't have to just only sell on Etsy.com, you can actually kind of pull that into your own website.
Etsy has its own website platform too.
Yeah.
Etsy pattern.
That's it, yeah.
That you
How
have a
are you
domain
selling
to.
yours?
Just on Etsy thing.
Etsy?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it connected into your website?
Just link across, it's basically on the page, it's like shop.
Oh.
Big button saying shop and it takes you straight to Etsy.
Okay.
Now I know I've kind of reinforced the point that technology is important to choose, but don't get too bogged down between e-commerce versus non-e-commerce, right? There's so many similar products, it's just a question of, boop, I'm gonna use that one. So don't get too bogged down by that, but know that the difference is going to be whether you're selling on your website versus not selling on your website. Okay, test your site. So you've built everything, right? I'm not gonna talk to you about how to build a website or anything like that. I know, Sarah's gonna go through that in more depth, but please test your website before you publish anything online, okay? So you need to think about what different types of devices people are gonna use, what types of browsers even, what browser versions they're using. So what you wanna do is, okay, I built my website, I'm ready to test it, I'm gonna look at it on my Mac, I'm gonna borrow a PC from my friend, I'm gonna look at it on my Galaxy phone, I'm gonna ask my friend if I can use their iPhone to look at it, and I'm gonna scroll and click and try to break the website, okay? Try it on lots of different devices and platforms. And then as you're clicking around, does anything not work as you expected it to work? You thought you built it one way, but it's doing something else, right? Do the links go where they need to go? Is the copy correct? Are the images correct? Again, we talked about images. Check those images on desktop and on mobile, okay? And always ask somebody else to help you. Developers should never be QAing their own work. You are focused on certain parts of the website. You have certain priorities that other people do not necessarily have, and they can see things that you may not be able to see. So always ask for help and give yourself plenty of time to do any bug fixes. So if I am trying to get into a store and I am meeting with the store manager tomorrow, I'm not going to put my website up tonight. I'm going to put my website up last week so that I make sure that when they look at that, there are no problems, there's no downtime, they're not getting any weird 404 messages, that kind of thing. Okay? So make sure you don't have any bugs. And do you know where the term bug comes from?
So,
So remember back in the day when they had computers that you would have to feed paper instructions to? They could literally get bugs in that would cause a problem. So it's a literal bug in the code.
gnarly.
Yeah. Okay, bonus points. So you did everything, you set everything up, you want to take it to the next level, right? Think about SEO rankings. That's search engine optimization. When someone types, let's say, John Nelson into Google, what's the first search result? What's the second search result? Is John's personal website on the 6th search result page of Google? Nobody's going to get there, right? So you want to think about, sorry, John, you don't have a website though. Think about those kinds of things, right? So how can you improve your SEO ranking? How can you get higher up in those results? You can think about adding meta tags. So that's going to tell search engines what kind of information is on your page. So you can do research to figure out, okay, like if I put this word in my tagging, that'll promote me for Ceramic Artist Austin or something like that, right? I am no SEO expert. That is a whole field. But there are some basic, look for internet resources if you are interested in improving your SEO ranking. Greenfield content is a big one. Greenfield content means new content, constantly refreshed content. So if you're writing articles, blog articles on your page, on your website, that's going to improve your search ranking greatly. That's why for a lot of these websites, that's why I'm calling this bonus points, right? Because most of us aren't going to have blogs, right? Maybe we'll make maintenance updates once in a while. Set up analytics to see how many people are going to your site, when they're going to your site, what pages they're going to. Set up any redirects. Let's say you had an old domain, you have an old website. So I'm rebranding my website from Andrea Makes Pottery to Andrea Makes It All. I need search engines to understand when someone goes to Andrea Makes Pottery, they should actually be going to Andrea Makes It All. So that's some configuration that you can set up on your site. Writing image alt text. So for people who do not have images available on their devices, if they turn images off or maybe they're blind or something, you can write a description of the imagery. Reducing page load times. If you have really high quality imagery, that can sometimes slow your site down. So maybe think about, is there a different file format you can use? Can you compress it? That kind of thing. All right, so stay in touch. I'm on Instagram, I am on email, and I will send my website through to you when I am done building it. But I swear I can do it. All right, any questions for me? All right, well, thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
So, I'm going to focus a little bit more on then what should you include on an artist's website. And so that is more like, we're specifically artists, right? We're not necessarily selling cookies. We're selling pots, which are just as good. But and so what are some of the other things you should consider having on an artist's website? and then which platform should you choose, which we've kind of talked a little bit about. So, why do you need a website? It is the only place that you can completely control your content. Most folks are like, well, why wouldn't I just have an Instagram account and that's it? And then maybe you have Shopify and you can link it to it. Both those platforms can, I mean, maybe not so much Shopify, but Instagram's constantly changing. Like they're giving us and taking away things that we can do on it. And so reels that you've made or followers that you've gained, you know, those could all just go away. They could shut down your account for some violation. So you don't have control over it. You do have control over a website that you create. With that, your followers, we were talking about mailing lists, you can lose all your followers too. So make sure that you are driving your followers on social media to sign up for your website or your newsletter. Anyway, but then website, you can also totally customize it. And then it's a central landing spot for all of your other platforms, whether that be Shopify or Etsy or something like that, or, you know, going to Facebook, what's some of the other things, TikTok, you know, connecting all of your accounts like that. So what might you need to include on an artist website? Some things that are good to have, like Andrea said, a gallery or your portfolio of work. And you may have that in addition to your stuff that is available for purchase, whether you have a platform connected that you are selling through. Generally, you want another thing showing your best work. Like she said, if people are looking at your website to consider you for a residency or to get into a show. Other things would be an artist statement. Why do you make the work you make? A little bit about you, a bio. If you have an artist resume or a CV, maybe a list of shows that you've participated in, galleries you've been in. That's a whole other topic. All of these are whole other topics that you can focus an entire session on. But then, yeah, how to purchase your work. Is it within the site? Are you sending them to a different site? Your contact info. It is up to you how much of that you put on there. I will say I am having a heck of a time with all of MailChimp and then Square, because they are requiring you to have an address and list it like on your receipts. And so I have to list my home address because I don't have anything else that I can put on there. So I'm still working on that. If anybody has any suggestions on what to do instead.
Well, it's something I did for a couple of years was get a PO box.
Yeah,
But you have to pay for that.
right.
So
Yeah.
after a couple of years I gave up. So,
Some
but yeah,
people have
but
been like,
basically-
oh, I put my workplace or I put my school, and I'm like, well, I don't have any of those. But my home is my workplace. So anyway, but phone number, I took my phone number off my website many years ago because that was links to your social media, and then of course a mailing list sign up. So, let's see what's next.
So did you have a lot of people bother you with your phone number?
No, but I took it off probably 15 years ago.
Okay.
This was, as everything was moving more digital, and it was suggested to me that was an unsafe thing
Okay.
to do.
Because people can track you down.
Yeah, and just telemarketers, people, it's like listing your email out. I'll show on my website, I don't have my email listed out. It is a button you click to email me, because I don't want bots going through, pulling my email and start sending me a bunch of spam.
Okay.
So how do you get your website found? Be sure to optimize it so that you can be found in internet searches, meaning new audience members, buyers perhaps. Like Andrea mentioned, utilizing your website builder's SEO and the alt text for images, tags and title pages. So we've kind of talked about that. Title pages, I mean as in title your pages, which we'll go over that. And then include links to your website on all of your promotional materials, like a business card and your social media platforms. Linktree is an amazing thing for getting to all of those things from your social media platforms. And what that resulted out of is with Instagram, you can only have one link. And so Linktree, is there anybody who doesn't know what Linktree is? Okay. Linktree, I'll pull it up here in a minute. It basically gives you a landing page that you can then list a bunch of links, and they just look like buttons. You can customize how it looks and everything. So like for me, it's important to be able to, and you can change the order of everything on there. So if you're trying to promote something particular from your Instagram account, you can drag that button to the top of your link tree and send people there. Rather than just having a link to your website and having to change a bunch of that stuff to try to get people to the right place once they get to your website, you can just say link in bio, takes you to Linktree, and then it's got all those things that you're mentioning. There's other versions of that too. I tried to make that very short because I knew Andrea was doing a really good job of talking about stuff, but so a little bit of my website and online store journey, and then I'll actually show you some of it. So I created my first website through not GeoCities, but Yahoo, back in 2008, I think was when I purchased my domain. I think I actually had a website back in 2005. But then, so I purchased a domain so that it was specifically my name, except there was apparently already a sarahgurman.com out there, amazingly. So I'm Sarah Gurman Ceramics. And then to try to figure out how to sell online, I opened an Etsy store in 2010, and kind of like Jason was saying, I just had a shop button on my website that then took people to my Etsy store. Then in 2017, so I had that and was using Yahoo Site Builder, which is a very basic, I think you could use templates, but it also just let you build the site however you wanted. But I moved to Wix in 2017 to utilize newer features because they just were not updating Site Builder anymore, and I wanted to be able to embed my Etsy store into Wix, but then also be able to share videos, more photos. The next step is when I added Facebook and Instagram, but so yeah, I redid my website. It was just an artist website on Wix in 2017. And then I don't remember who was mentioning like widgets or add-ons, apps. Wix had one that it was an Etsy store. So it just embedded your Etsy store, connected it, embedded it within your site. So that's how I managed that. And I just kept Etsy as a shopping cart. Because to add a shopping cart or an e-commerce part to your website, of course, made the price go up significantly. And I wasn't selling enough to justify that. Whereas with Etsy, you just pay a listing fee and then fees when you sell. So, however, in 2021, I had gained a significant amount of Instagram followers, and Etsy had changed some of their policies, such as asking people to offer free shipping, which for pottery was not cool, and suggesting that you just raise your prices to kind of compensate yourself for that, which, if you don't know, you shouldn't do different prices through different things. So like if I'm gonna go and take work to a gallery, it shouldn't be a different price than what I'm selling online or what I'm selling at Texas Clay Festival. So I just was kind of, and they kept upping all of their fees. So I was like, I'm done. I was hoping, I had kind of justified Etsy in the fact that people could find me on there, but that was also just not really realistic anymore. You had to pay for ads, you had to offer free shipping, otherwise they bumped you kind of to the bottom. So anyway, in 2021, I decided to add an online store to my Wix plan, and that also allowed me to then, when you see in Instagram or Facebook, when people actually have like there's a little shopping bag next to their post, and you can click it and it takes you to the item. You can tag items, and you just have an online store that is embedded within Facebook and Instagram as well. And so I wanted to be able to do that. Etsy did not offer that. So let's see here. Then last year, Wix was, so all of these platforms give you nice introductory discounts. And so Wix was going to up my plan, like several $100s. So, and there were just features on there that I didn't need, and that's something we can kind of talk about too. Is that like I think I skipped that slide actually. Here we go. So a lot of paid platforms are gonna give you more features and insights. Like with the Wix one, I had built-in newsletter and mailing lists. I could see all my analytics. It asked people if they wanted to sign up for my newsletter when they checked out. There was all these automated things that happened in the background that were just there. I could do things even though I didn't need it. If you were doing something like, let's say you were offering classes or open studio time out of your studio, or something that you need people to make appointments for. Those kind of things were just built into the price, and I just didn't need that stuff. So going back to this real quick, some of the free platforms, Google Sites is what I use now. It is also what I created the GACA website on. And you can connect, if you bought a domain, which mine is still through Yahoo all these years later, I've never switched it over. You can, whenever you usually sign up for a new website, it'll say, do you want to import a domain? I've just left it on Yahoo because it's $13 a year. It's always been the cheapest, so I've just left it.
Google's 12.
Google's
All right, well now it's time to switch. Actually, I think I just paid for it for another year, so, you know. Do I really want to save that $1 to like go through the pain?
That's a personal
moving it?
decision.
You actually can make free sites through Wix. Weebly is another one. Etsy, like I said, that's more of just a store. If you actually want to create a full website with Etsy, they have Etsy Pattern, but that is a paid one. I think it's $15 a month, but it lets you connect a domain and makes your Etsy store right in it. Square Online is the other one that I said that I used, and you can create a free online store. It only charges you the same Square transaction fees that same as swiping the card. So there's that, but again, if you want to connect a domain, that's when you have to start paying for plans. Let's see here. Okay, so same thing with Square. They were going to up my prices, and Square Online is also, because I still use it partially, is a little clunky. It is Weebly. It is hosted through Weebly, and I don't know if that connection between the two is a little disconnected and it doesn't work very well, but anyway, it was mostly the raising price, and then they also, it's the things like the newsletter, to be able to collect those and keep those, they wanted to charge me another $15 a month. So I kind of challenged myself to figure out the cheapest and freest way to do all of it. So it takes a little bit more work, but I'll show that. So I did my site, talking about the copy and the photos. I had this all with Wix, and it's been easy over the last couple years to just copy paste and recreate it on these different platforms. So I do recommend like saving documents or something of all your text. That way it's real easy, keeping a folder of all your images. So it's real easy to just recreate it if you need to. It does still take some time, but it's not too bad. And then, like I said, I have kept my online store through Square Online. And so it is embedded within my site, but I'm also real straightforward when you get to that page that is actually hosted through Square. And for a more seamless shopping experience, I've got a big button that says visit my Square store. So it can be either. One of the other reasons I switched to the Square Online, besides it being free, was that I use Square when I am selling in person. So I always had to shut down my Wix or Etsy store when I was selling in person because I didn't want to have to keep track. So I would just shut it down, not sell anything, and then I'd have to come back afterwards and like redo my inventory and figure out what I had sold and remove those items. Now I just put everything into my Square shop, and I can go through and find it when I'm selling in person and just sell it. I do use SKU numbers now on all my stuff, SKU, which is just a barcode. I mean, it can't be a barcode, but you know, like when you go to a store and it's got a number on it, that way I know that I've sold the right one, and I just label all my pots when I'm selling in person. And I also have like multiples of things that look the same, so I'll give them different numbers so that I know when somebody buys something online, I'm sending them the right one. So, all right, let's get out of here. So, any preference for which one we talk about first? They're all kind of the same, they just have different layouts. So this is my current Google site, and this is the builder. Let's see here. Again, I kind of recreated the same site with just updates each time I did it, so they're just a little bit different. But I have a main page here with a little landing, introduction, an image, and then a footer that's at the bottom of every page. That's your call to action, which is join my mailing list. It's got links to my social media. And then I did open a MailChimp account. That's my next little tip and trick. Make sure you keep those up to date, and you actually like download your mailing list every once in a while and keep it as a separate personal file. I used to have a MailChimp account years ago, but then when I started using Wix, I just imported the contacts, but then I lost that. And I went to go back to MailChimp, and they had shut down my account because of inactivity. So it was gone. So just keep a master mailing list copy is always a good idea. So anyway, when you are building a site with Google, like if you that's the other thing I changed. I was having to pay for my Sarah at sarahgurmanceramics.com email, $80 a year. And so that's the other thing I changed this year. I gave myself a sarahgurmanceramics@gmail email. I'm getting rid of it. It is officially expired, though they're giving me 30 days. And so I've moved everything over. Because I just didn't want to pay $80 a year for an email when everybody seems to be fine just using Gmail for emails these days. So anyway, let's say I wanted to create a new website. Within Drive, I'm just gonna go, here we go. So go down to more, and it might be different depending on what you've used in Google, but there's Google Sites. And it just opens a blank website for you. And from within here, there's 3 panels over here. It makes it real easy. This is all of your content blocks and what ways that you can put them in there. You can also just start pulling and putting items in here and rearranging them. But what Andrew was kind of talking about planning them out, reusing the same things, you can just drag these in here and have them start building out, and then you can add in your titles, your images, and you can also just use them from up here as well. Up here, you can customize all of this as well, give each page a title. You can add an image back here if you want for your header. You can also change the header type to just be a bigger cover, larger banner. I think title, so totally gets rid of the image. So anyway, you can start to customize that, and then it will show up through all of your pages that you start adding. Pages over here, you can start to add them in here. So it just gives you down here, just adding a new page, adding a new menu section. I'll show you that on my website in here in just a minute. So there's different options. A lot of times you're just gonna add a new page. And then over here is themes, and you can, sorry, it's kind of squishing it in a little bit. But this is where you can adjust like your fonts, your colors. You can use the ones they have and just change the colors, or you can just create your own. You can add a logo, add a banner image, title the theme, so mine's just like Sarah German Ceramics, and then it'll have you pick fonts and colors as you go through those dots. So pretty easy, and then it also gives you preview, and it lets you see what does it look like on a large screen, as in a computer, a tablet, and a phone. Right now it's not going to show you much because there's only the header on there, but let's go back to mine. So to look at some of those, so my pages over here, so I have an about section and it drops down. And then it's got artist bio, artist statement, my CV, and publications. And so that's what the menu header it was talking about. And so then you can create pages that go below it. So when you go over here, there's my header, and then I've got the pages below it. You can also have pages that don't show up in navigation. And so you can turn that off. So I've got several pages throughout my website that do that, because I don't necessarily want them to clog that up, but I have them linked. So like if I go to this publications tab, then these then go to those pages that you can't see otherwise. Let's see here. Some of these I'm still working on a little bit, but portfolio, you know, like I said, it is just a brief look at some of my work. It's not necessarily work that's still for sale, but that allows people to come and kind of look. For themes, so yeah, like I said, well, let me look at it. Nope. Here. So there, it'll let me pick what fonts I want for my title and my headings, so that Amatic or whatever is where Sarah German Ceramics, portfolio, so it will be kind of like the top font that you use, and then your body text, you can choose a different font if you want. And then you can pick colors. I've kept mine pretty simple, white, black, and gray, because my work is colorful and I didn't want it to distract from that. So let's see here, what else? So here, for example, this is my preview mode. And so I've got my, and you can change a lot of this. So right now my menu is up here. You can change it to be on the side. There's some other things you can change like that. But the most important one to check is to see what stuff looks like on a phone. And a lot of times, most of these platforms will do it for you automatically. Google's nice because it won't necessarily crop any of the images, they'll just shrink it down. So here it just puts them all in a line. Let's look at another page like that. So if I go to, let's look at this one. This one's got a lot of weird things in it. So I offer firing. So, you know, I've got some text and I broke it down pretty well. So it's kind of a lot of text, but it's broken into sections. So you can read through it pretty quickly. I have a information form. So that is one thing, like with Wix and Square, I am able to embed forms in the website, and they're all nice. They look pretty and they match the rest of the site. With Google, there's not really a good way. They look like Google Forms. And so you can embed them in here, but they look really clunky and not, yeah. So I ended up just recreating the forms in Google Form and then making a button. So if somebody clicks on this, it comes over and I just ask them some information about firing. And then the other thing, and this was another reason for switching from Square, is some of the ways that you can embed things. So this is a Google Calendar I have for firing, for the people I fire for, so that they can see when firings are coming up. And this, I don't know if, let's see if it'll do this. Yeah, copy to my calendar. So that's what we were asking about before with the Google site, and you may be able to do this on another one. It will go ahead and do that for you. So I just basically, we come back out to the page, insert, So I kind of talked about the content blocks and these, but down here, there's also a whole list of other things. So you can make things collapsible, so it can bring all the content up, so it's not cluttering a page. It'll let you have a drop down essentially, so people can read more. I did that with the studio tour pages when we did the studio tour last spring. An image carousel, buttons, dividers, spacers, social links, which mine are at the bottom. And so if I click on this, mine's down in the footer, so it's not showing, I guess, because this wants to put it in the body of the page. But you can add all of your links, and they'll show up as the little icons. You can embed YouTube videos, which if you haven't looked, I just added all the GACA videos to our website this past week. So, calendar, like I just had a map, which I did with the studio tour on the GACA page. And you can add other Google things like docs and slides and all that. Questions on this?
So did you have a contact me form?
So I didn't like the look of that either. So if you go to my contact page, it's just a button. And I have very little coding on here. And that one is literally, so if you go to, is that it? Oh no, I do have it connected to a contact form actually. I used to have a button that just was email. Oh, I guess I did change it. It does have my email on there right now. I did just have like a little mail icon on there. And if you do mail to, I think,
Yeah.
and then it will automatically open whatever mail app they're using, and it'll put your email in. I'd have to look up how to do that again, but
'Cause one thing I did, because I didn't want my email in text, was I put an image of my business card, which has the email on it, but it's not in text,
Mhm.
clear text.
that's fine, yeah.
Does
Okay.
that keep robots from writing it?
Hopefully I can dig less spam because of it. That was the idea.
I must have done this one night when I was very tired. Okay, so let's see here. And then my shop, and I can show the Square and Wix on this as well. But my shop, so I just added my online store is hosted through Square. The store is embedded below, but you can also use the button to navigate to Square for a more seamless shopping experience. Because what happens, so with this, I did insert, embed, and you can either put a full website in there, and that's what I did. I just took my Squarespace site, which I'll show you that in a second, just has a generic Square site address. And you can do that. The other thing though, like this MailChimp email, this is an actual code. And so you can embed a code. And that was simply going into my MailChimp, and you can, it's there. It tells you exactly how to do it. So it looks like a bunch of gibberish, which it is. I was trying to change some things and totally messing it up, so I know very little. But that is how I put that in there. So you can embed code and you can embed sites. Oops. Yes, if you double click in the middle of the screen, it also gives you like all these insert things as well. So anyway, yes, so here is my Square store embedded within the site. But part of the reason I added the button is because, give it a second to load. It does take a second to load. But then if somebody, let me see if this will do this right. I think there was a chance that if somebody like adds to cart and then they click back instead of coming back to mugs or going within this, let's see if it will go back. Oh, it did go back. I was afraid it was going to be a little clunky, and it still may be. I've not fully tested that out, but just as a precautionary measure. I didn't finish this all that long ago, so, but it has been working so far. But then within So Square Online. So let's just go, if you have a Square account, if you have ever opened it on a desktop, of course it's gonna make me sign in. Oops. There's a Square dashboard, and there's some things that you can only do from this. Like if you are selling through Square, did you know you can customize your receipts? You can get on here and do that. Even if you're not setting up an online store, you can change all that stuff in here and add logos, and change the colors, all that. But anyway, within here, I mean, you have to go through setting it up a little bit, but there's this, whatever these things are called, hamburgers, whatever. Then there's online. And then you can do things like create an actual site and add your items. And so all I have now, I mean, I do actually have the full site still. And we'll just look at it because it's a fairly similar website. But what I have done, so if I come here and drop down all my pages, I have all these same pages that I had in the Google one. It's just I have turned them all off in the navigation so that when people come here now, they can only go to the shop. But what it does is if you, and I did fully build this out before I added my domain to just test it out. And you can do that with all of these platforms, is just go ahead and make a free account and start building it and seeing what happens. If you like how it works, if you don't. One of the things I didn't like about the Square one is you are stuck with their template. There's things that you cannot move around, like this footer. There's things I can turn off, but I've only got a couple layouts here. Where are the things? Oh, content. So I've turned off most everything because I just wanted my social media icons. Now I have a little link to say to return to my actual website. But I turned a lot of these off because I didn't want them, but I also couldn't move them around and format them how I wanted. And that was kind of happening with all the pages. You only had certain content blocks that you were able to use, and you can't really adjust the size of the font very much. So it just wasn't as customizable. But you can use it to make a whole site. And so what happens now, is it this one? Yeah. So you can see sarahgermanceramics.square.site. So that if somebody, I could still have this as a website, turn everything back on, and I would just have to use that as my website address rather than the domain. So all of these you can make and host a free site. You just have to use their squirrely domain. So like Weebly is weebly.com/whatever you want. Etsy's the same way. If you don't want to pay for their connected domain thing, it's etsy.shop. whatever your shop name is. So you can do a lot of that, but it's not difficult to connect a domain either. Like I said, I purchased my domain years ago. It's always been with Yahoo, so I've always had to connect it to these, which is somewhat the challenge if you don't buy it or transfer it to your new host. Sometimes there can be a lot of background stuff that has to happen that I have no idea what these things are. Google was actually not too bad to connect that. Square took a lot of effort and a lot of chatting with both Square and Wix and Google. Because then my email with Wix was through Google. So you have to pay extra for a hosted email. So let's see here, what else? We can look at, so let's go to shop. Does anybody besides, do you have a shop? Or
No, I was just
question?
ask you a question
Yeah.
about the SKU. Where are they here? Where do you see?
I don't
this?
even know if it lists it on here. It is more of a background thing for me.
Okay.
I don't think it is on here unless it's,
No, it was just.
yeah, so let's look at how I add all this stuff. So let's get out of here. You can add items to Square either on here, go to site items, or I can do it on my phone. And they will sync. So I have done in the past where I've unloaded a kiln and I want to be able to load things in here real quick, and I'll just do it on my phone and I'll take a quick snapshot of it with my phone for the listing. But I'll go back later and kind of do better images and everything. But if I'm heading out to a sale and I want to have it on here, which you don't have to, you can also still just sell by typing in how much something is. But with this, so let's create a new item. And this is real similar to, you know, any other, I mean, I've used Etsy and Wix are the other ones. So this is really similar. The only thing that this does not do that the other ones do is let you pick a shipping profile. And I'll get to that in a minute. So when you're adding items to pretty much any of these, here you can change, usually it's just gonna be physical or digital, especially if you're selling like through Etsy or this. You can sell a digital file, you know, if you're selling something somebody can print out, you know. You can sell it as a digital copy. I only do physical ones, so that's what it's just always at, but there's all these other ones. So that, you can add your images over here. I think you can maybe, no, this is just images. I think with one of the other ones that let you do a video as well. You're gonna give your item a title. I don't know what the current Etsy thing is or what the idea is, but I know when I was doing Etsy years ago, it's like you listed everything in the title. It is a blue pottery, ceramic, clay mug, drinking vessel, you know. I don't think that's such, because they give you the ability to add tags and stuff now for the search. It's not such a big thing anymore, I don't think. But within my own site, I'm not, you know, too worried about it. Somebody could Google and search for something that ends up showing an item of mine, I suppose. But so it lets you put in price. Sale price I don't mess with. I just had a sale on my website. But from that last page where it had all my listings, I can just click all of them, select all of them, and add a sale to all of them at the same time. Add other types of media. So I guess you can maybe add a video. Then here's your copy. I usually, like, let's go back to this one. I do go ahead and keep, like, based on the different forms that I make, I've got a document that just has all the descriptions for each one. And then I just go in and change like little things like the color and then the size. I have, you know, the size, it holds approximately 14 ounces. So I also put this. Pieces are handmade by me, which means they are slightly different and inconsistencies are celebrated. You know, just, and then I recommend too, if you are, if you start selling online, you've got policies there so that people can't come back. Please be sure to follow your tracking. I'm a one-woman business, and unfortunately, I can't be responsible for packages that are stolen, you know. So, and show they've been delivered. It was nice. When I was using Etsy, I had somebody try to get their money back because their piece was stolen off their porch. Etsy protected me from that. But with this, I've got it stated there, so, you know, I'll do it, I suppose. I've not had it happen recently, but you know, case by case basis, I suppose. If something really terrible happened, I suppose I would. I gave somebody a discount for a piece that they had bought in person and broke recently. So I was like, here's a coupon, so you can make coupons that people can redeem. And they did that. They ordered another one that was 20% off. So I wasn't gonna. It's a piece of pottery. It breaks, so be careful with that type thing. Now I'm not gonna give them another piece, but sure, I feel. I feel bad. So it, you know, I use discretion, I suppose. But yeah, anyway, so all that, and like Andrea said, I have looked at a bunch of other people's sites to get all this information so that I'm not having to do it all from scratch, changing it to fit what I need it to, you know, and all that. There is so let's talk a little bit about shipping on here. Let's see here. So here, fulfillment, how do you want your shoppers receiving this item? Shipping or pickup? Thought I'd turn this off. Because pickup shows them my home address, which I'm not real keen on. So I think I have it turned off in another section, so even though it's selected here, it won't let them. But that's why I added in here, I changed it so if they want to do a local pickup, I have a coupon set up that if they put in local pickup when they're checking out, it'll remove the shipping cost. And that way I just then email them and I'll set up a pickup time and then I'll carefully give them my address. You know, so I'm just trying to do things that are protecting myself. But the shipping on here, this is what I don't like. I don't have it set up to where it automatically calculates for people based on their address, because I make different stuff. You know, I'm not so streamlined that all my mugs are gonna be the same weight and they're gonna fit in the same box and it's predictable like that. So I have flat rates for shipping, and I say that if they paid too much, I'll refund them some of that price. If it goes over, usually it's not by much, and I'm going to consider that a packing fee. A lot of times, unless they paid like $10 extra, and then I'll give it back. But usually it's just like $1 or $2. So there's that, but there's nowhere in here to actually select which shipping profile you want, which is what I don't like. Every other platform has allowed me to do that. You set up shipping profiles in the shipping section, which I can show here in a minute. And it's got a drop down that you just choose which one you want. This does not have it. So every time I add items, I have to go back into the shipping section and make sure they get added to the correct one. Otherwise, they just get added to a default. So that's not my favorite thing. Here's where this is another thing that's a little clunky, because usually this square online is geared a little bit more towards like a boutique or cookies or, you know, doing stuff like that. A lot of things that might be, maybe you're selling t-shirts. And so the stock, this is something I had to figure out. You do have to track stock, and you have to, like, usually I just have one of an item. So I do have to do that and update stock, because I found out that if I don't do that, if I don't track stock, I can sell an item and it's still listed. So I caught it because I looked through everything and I made test items. But that was something, you know, that was not foreseen and not like other ones. Then this is the SKU. And so like I said, I just give my pieces numbers, usually a letter and a number. I have a system. It's like an abbreviation of whatever it is, like a mug, M. And then I was just doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I realized that I was going that was gonna be really hard. So then I started adding the year before, but just the 1, 2, 23, 3. So anyway, if you get to that point, you know, it's a good way to keep track of stuff. I do have a Excel document that I track all this stuff in. But yeah, that's where you would add that. Variations, like if you were selling like t-shirts and you wanted to do size and color, you know, that you can add those things into a lot of these. Modifiers might be if you want people to be able to customize what's on the t-shirt, like a name or something. Adding things to categories, so that's this, that's this on the side. If I add things to categories, people can come and click on mugs, and everything that I've listed as mugs will show up on that page. Here's where you would do the SEO. I have not taken the time to actually do it. So you don't have to, you know, but it would probably be a smart thing for me to start adding those things. And they would be fairly like copy paste type things. So we're gonna cancel out of this. Yes.
You mentioned colours, like t-shirts are in colours. One thing I found selling mugs on Etsy is that I got like a blue line, green line, and white. So I'd have the listing for blue mugs and like different angle shots. And then at the last one, I'd have a photo of 3 different colours. So I'll have a green one, blue one, and a white one to show you these are other options you can get. That caused me no end of trouble. Because people say they'd order the blue one, say, but I can have it in the green. And eventually took down all of those photos because it just caused me more hassle than we thought it would create.
I think there is an option within this somewhere. I do recommend whatever platform you choose, it's hard to see on here, but go through all these things down the side, because I've found things in there that I did not expect, and it gives you a lot of information and tells you what your site can and can't do. And there's been things that I found that like, oh shoot, I should have that like turned on, and I haven't. But still within these items, like I said, you can create coupons. Item sync is where you would turn on or off, like if you added something on your phone, do you want it to show up on here? I do, because I don't want to do double the work. Some other things is fulfillment, maybe where shipping is. Okay, so fulfillment, pickup and delivery, I have both those turned off. Shipping, here is where, so you can set it up that you can purchase your shipping labels through Square. I instead use Rollo, which is up here, which you can then sync with your Square. All these things are kind of like, same thing with MailChimp. I was able to sync with my contacts from Square. So a lot of these things work cross-platform. It just asks you to sign in to Square through, Rollo. But it's just discounted shipping labels. But here is where I had to set up shipping profiles, and it was a little tricky figuring out what things to click and not click. So I just have different ones set up, like a small item, $8, which is usually like a little tiny piece that can fit in a 6x6x6 box. So we'll click on here real quick. This one also just loads very, very slow, Square Online. When I was editing my website a lot, it would essentially say like something went wrong and you had to reload. So it's a little clunky, but the fact that it is not charging me for the store, is just charging me that Square fee when I sell an item, I'm willing to kind of like deal with it. And the fact that it will show up on my phone when I'm selling in person. Anyway, so, you can name a shipping profile, add a custom rate. I do have one set up that is, I think, $10 and default all items. So anything that I add goes to that default one. Like I said, there's no way within when I'm making the item to have it automatically, or to select which one you want. But so what you have to do instead is when I add things, I have to come here to whichever shipping profile. I'll click add more items. And you can come in here and see which ones are currently selected and which ones need to be, or which ones you want to add. And so all these ones that aren't checked are under a different shipping profile. So it's kind of hard to track all that stuff. That's the only, I guess, complaint I have with that. But all right, I'm talking about what else? Anything? It's a lot.
I wanted to update a previous statement.
Uh-huh.
I just happened to read that Squarespace has bought the Google domains, or is in the process of buying it, and they're only guaranteeing the current prices for 12 months.
Oh, interesting.
So we'll see what they do.
Did they buy, well, no, they wouldn't have bought Google, but like, I wonder.
They apparently resell Google sites as well, and I don't know exactly what that means. But.
Yeah. So maybe Google sites won't stay free. Who knows? But like I said, because I have created all this content and have it fairly well organized, I can just kind of pull, or I mean, I literally can go to the two websites, and that's how I started most of the Square site, or not the, I started copying from the Square site to this Google site. I just selected the text, copy, took it on the next one and pasted and just formatted it to be what it should be. You can, if you're doing a lot of that and end up, because websites can get kind of funky, if you are copying and pasting and it's doing weird things, you can go to, I don't know about if Mac has something like this, but you can go to the Notepad app, and it is just a plain text thing in here. It's not Word, it's not, you will just type across there. But if you copy text from a website, like let's come here. If I just copy this and take it into Notepad, it will get rid of all the formatting. I mean, there's some return spaces in here. But if I were to copy and paste out of this now, then it would get rid of the formatting from the other one. Usually.
Something that can happen when you're copying and pasting between multiple platforms is that special characters can get added onto the original text you're copying. So like one thing I'm finding is that like my PDFs or my resume, when I upload them into like some sort of job, whatever, FF turns into a special character. For whatever reason. So yeah, just keep that in mind. But when you go into something like Notepad or a text editor, that's all plain text. It's not going to put any special characters in there.
I was going to say one thing about the shipping, because Etsy, like I said, Etsy kind of forced you into including shipping in your prices.
Mm-hmm.
So when that happened, I actually looked how much it cost me to ship stuff on Etsy and how much it costs to go to an art festival and be at an art festival.
Right.
It was actually cheaper selling stuff on Etsy. So basically I kept the same prices in art fairs and on Etsy. And it was, because it was costing me more to go to an art festival, but I'm totally fine about it. If you're doing galleries, that's another different
Right,
thing.
yeah.
But it was like, it was made it easy to say, oh, it's the same price on both prices.
To me, it's principle. I don't want to ship a big vase for $30 and then just, I know.
Well, the other thing I
Things change. I'm willing to like adjust, but.
Well, the other thing I did, because I was selling stuff on Etsy and taking to shows, I'd only have like, if I had like 4 oil bottles in blue, I'd have 2 listed on Etsy, and I would put red masking tape on those 2 in the box, so that I knew if I was going to pull that out of the box and try and sell it, I had to take it off Etsy.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of a red flag to kind of take it off, delist it.
Yeah, when I was doing that and having to track inventory at in-person shows, the way I did it was just peel the price tag off the pot and stick it in a notebook and write down what it was. And so then I was just able to go back and remove it off of other things. Plus it also is there nicely when, you know, you gotta support what you sold to your tax person. Yeah.
2 questions. The first one, you said Rolo shipping label. Was a discounted shipping label? Is that just for the label, or is that a third-party product that gives you discounted shipping, or?
It gives you discounted shipping. Is it Ship Pirate is another one. There's several. Rolo, they're trying to sell you their label printer. But, you know, I bought my cheap label printer off of, or you can print them out and tape them on the box, but they offer, so it will, I'm trying to decide how to show this. I don't know if it will show without actually putting one in. You basically, you know, if I was just coming to this without having, like if somebody comes to me at a show and says, can you ship this to me? I could come in here, put their address, how big the box is. I guess I wouldn't do it in person. If I was doing it later, you know, if they'd asked me, I could come in here, put their address, pack everything up, measure the box, weigh the box, put those things in, and it'll drop down and it'll give me USPS, UPS, FedEx, DHL, or whatever that one is. You know, it'll give me the different options and I can go through and pick which one I want to use. And they are discounted. I think after a certain amount, I don't remember, it's something like 500 labels. They are going to start charging you it's like cents per label, but still much cheaper than just going to the actual individual USPS or UPS. But what you can do is connections, selling channels, and you can, if you've got, if you're selling through any of these, you can connect them. So Wix, Shopify, Square, Squarespace. You're selling through Walmart, I don't know. Etsy, the big ones are on here, Big Cartel.
So you're connected to Square.
Yep, so I've got Square right here. And so anytime somebody orders something from me on Square, I can come to orders. Yay, you're all cut up. But it will actually already be there. And what's nice about that, and I've got it in my store policies, whatever address they typed in is where it's going. So if I have not mistyped anything, somebody can't be like, oh, you didn't put that in correctly. It's like, nope, that's on you. If you didn't type your address correctly, that's not my fault. So it's kind of helpful.
The second part, which is kind of tied to the first part, is say you're selling something out of state. So how does out of state sales tax work with Square?
Okay, so you're gonna set up sales tax in Square. Let's see here. Settings, sales taxes. So it will have you set it all up. Actually, don't. Add tax rate. No, somewhere in here, just from selling in person on the Square app, I have Texas, and then I've also done a couple shows in Maryland, so I have those two, and you can turn them on and off. But as far as selling online in other states, who knows if it will change in the future, but it is literally with most states, from what I understand from tax people, is that it's literally like hundreds of thousands of dollars before you have to pay taxes in other states. So if somebody orders something from me on Square, if they put in their address as Texas, it will automatically charge them tax, and then I have to remit that tax. But if they order from out of state, it's not charging them tax.
Yeah, I think you must have a large legal or physical presence in that
Right.
state.
It's a physical presence or a certain amount of money, and that certain amount of money is like, I would assume for all of us, like way more.
Well, it used to be that all internet sales were tax-free.
Right.
And then certain states started
Thank you,
charging.
Wayfair.
Yeah.
And now, what Etsy does is they will, for the states that require it, they add on their sales tax.
Yeah.
And they collect it and remit it for you.
Right, yes. Yeah,
They-
Etsy
they-
is different.
So yeah, Etsy, I have to do my own Texas one, but Etsy does all the other states for me.
Mhm. And so if you were selling through, I would assume maybe like Walmart or Amazon, there's Amazon Handmade, they probably are collecting tax for you and remitting it. So it's the bigger ones that have a certain amount of sales that it's based on how much. So I said thank you Wayfair because it was called like the Wayfair something. Like Wayfair was what caused all of this to happen. So anything else? But it's totally fine to just have a website. That's so another, before some of these started offering kind of free options or low cost options, you can also just, I had considered doing this at one point when I wasn't sure how I could connect to the Google site. You could have things listed and you can do things like get PayPal buttons. That you would put with each thing, or you can do that within Square too. You can have it create a button for each item, but you would have to sit there and put it on each page. But there is a way around that, especially if you're not selling that much. You could just put the items on their own pages on your website and then have some sort of embedded link to take you to some sort of platform that, I mean, most people have PayPal and that's, or a Venmo. Venmo would probably be another one. So.
anybody try just saying, email me if you want something listed here.
It's the payment processing part, that- yeah. That,
think it
yes,
just
that's
depends
how
on
I
the-
used to do it before all that was just email me if you see something on my website.
Well, the type of work you make as well,
Yeah.
right? Like if you're a production potter, you obviously don't want someone emailing you for every single piece you made. But if
Right.
you have different artistic, large something or others, you know, it's probably more of a conversation you need to have.
Well, small number, handcrafted batches.
Yeah.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
I hope you make a website if you're.